The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent, including IVC Media.
IVC Media.
I am your host, Mr. Wowzer. We are the Doty Connection. Today, we are going to be talking about some very, very deep topics that I feel is going to touch your soul, as well as recommend you to some great products from Cold Fire Extracts and True Classics, True OG. Trust me, it's going to hit you hard.
Wow.
Anyade and Wagwan Panyaras Clot. I am your host, Mr. Wowzer. Welcome to TDOC. I got a very, very special guest in here today. I can't wait to introduce him. But first, you know how I like to do it. First, shout out to my sponsors, Cold Fire Extracts. What up, IVC Media? What up, IVC? Doty, March and Ash. I'm going to take it to one of my records that's popping on Shazam right now. I got over 3,000 for this. It tripped me out seeing it. It's called My Way because I like to do things my way. I mean, of course, you could do it the highway too, but why not do it my way? It's better. Check it out after this.
What up? Same way it was back then. And nothing changed. I won't make the same mistakes. Try to see it once. My way. I'm moving forward in my mind. It's locked on concentration. Keeping it down for all of y'all, the whole population. I put that on my soul and I put weirdos in my operation. Only success and positive vibes if I give conversation. I took the high road and the highway. Lighting up this hydros, how I turn it to a Friday. I crafted up these packs, that's why I sell it for a highway. No days off, that's why I'm high up on the supply chain. Wowzer. Bag inside my bag again. Yeah, right. Same way it was back then. And nothing changed. I won't make the same mistake. Try to see it once. My way. I used to pray for better days. Now I understand the power of thought in the brain. Huge shout out to my kids for changing my ways. It's not a second, not a day. I don't give you praise. On the dead homies, progress can't be decreased. When they shot you through your neck, I couldn't breathe. When my mom told me she loved me, you could see my spirit increase. It's crazy, the littlest things in life can give you real peace. Facts, now I'm back inside my bag again. Something on, same way it was back then. And nothing changed. I won't make the same mistake. On the dead rally, try to see it once. My way.
You know what it's time for. I'm going to give you the best recreational and medicinal cannabis on the market. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to the True OG from True Classics. About this strain, True OG always delivers an incredible consistent taste, smell, and high that has made it LA's favorite OG. The signature piney taste and smell along with the exceptional high makes it the perfect choice for daytime, nighttime, and every time. Smoke better, live better with True Classics, True OG. THC percentage is 22. The top reported conditions is depression, chronic pain, muscle spasms, nausea, or appetite loss. The top reported strand flavors is earthy, gassy gas, and piney. I love a good OG. It's definitely our signature here in SoCal. So go ahead and do it the true way with True Classics, True OG. I'm going to bring it to our sponsors, Cold Fire Extracts. We'll be back after a while's word from them after this.
Cold Fire Extracts.
It's amazing.
The taste is great, clean and pure. It's loud like flowers, super tasty.
It has great effects and a long-lasting buzz.
This is why Coldfire is the #1 go-to vape in the cannabis space.
Coldfire extract scored a high 95 from the highestcritic.com.
Because of its standard of greatness in every category, even compared to solventless.
This is almost equalish, but it is definitely better than solventless. Go ahead and light up that Coldfire extracts.
I'm smoking it right now.
Wow, you know it's that time.
It's time for our special guest.
Before I introduce my guest, huge shout out to Steve because he did drop off that cold fire after the episode, and I'm real happy about it. It's some fire. All I gotta say is sticky rice. Hello. So let me go ahead and get it to my guest that I have here. Very special, very big deal. Very big deal. As the founder and the president of IVC Media, and this great thing that we're presenting to you on podcast for through Olas Media as well. A man of many characters, man. He's a man of opportunity. He's a man of optimism, ambition. Just talking with, even being on air right now is because of this man, Chad. I'm going to call him CP, of course, but because of this man, Chad, man, giving me a chance and treating me like a real brother and treating me like real family, and I treat him as such as blood. So we're going to get into all of that good, grand stuff. I'm going to go ahead and introduce it to my big Sagittarian brother, Chad Peace. What up, say, Pay? Talk to me nice. I talk back.
I'll see if I can keep up with you.
Hello, easy killer. So we're going to go ahead and get to the meat of this, okay? So I want to go ahead and break it in with life for you growing up with a politician as a father. How was that?
Man, you got to start off by pointing out that I'm a politician's kid. I mean, I was blessed. I don't run away from it. I'm super proud of who my father was. For those of you who don't know, I grew up and he was a Democratic politician. I have a Republican mother. Some people don't know that. Other people don't know that my dad used to always joke with me. He goes, both parties wanted me to switch sides, right? I didn't, not until I was like 30-something years old did I really realize, how kind of revolutionary he was, and as crazy, things have gotten crazy and crazier and crazier, but, he's been a thorn in the side of people who just want to keep doing things the same for a long time. And so I think I'm lucky. To watch that. He's somebody who was always honest, even with the people he disagreed with, and really fought for things he actually cared about instead of just trying to get to the next office. So I'm very proud of it.
I really didn't know that your mom was a Republican. That's a fun fact.
Yeah, my dad refers to her as a pro-death Republican. She's for all the pro-death thing. She's for abortion. She's for end of life stuff, and right. So he jokingly refers to her as pro-death Republican.
She's pro-death. Hello, easy killer. So I guess I want to bring it to the legacy that your father left for you and your brothers. Is that something that made you want to get into politics primarily? Or?
Well, no. I mean, I don't want to speak for both my brothers, but I actually was like, I don't want to go into politics. Like, people that really want to do good, they get spit up and chewed out, and you got to play the game, and like that's not who I want. You can't. It's hard to be authentic in politics. So I actually wanted to run away from it. I kind of got drug. I don't know whether drug back then or it was my own kind of passion running me back in or whatever. But now, I like where I'm at now. I do some political stuff. I'm very, do stuff with the Independent Voter Project that I'm very passionate about.
Can't wait to get to that.
And as you know, I get to make a living working with people like yourself, doing all kinds of cool shit.
Thank you very much.
I get to have a foot in the cannabis industry. I get to have a foot, and I work on jump ropes sometimes, and being a part of a marketing agency. So it's fun. I like it. Just like anybody else, you have your everyday stresses and everything. But I think I'm super blessed and happy to be where I'm at with the people I'm with.
Now I'm gonna ask you something personally. Did you always see yourself having so many hats, or when you were younger, you try to centralize it to one and then just opportunity and the world, life presented stuff to you? Because for my listeners, I'm going to tell you how ambitious Big Bro CP is. What's the story about you wanted to figure out something, so you went to law school and ended up. Could you tell the listeners, please? Because that's admirable, bro.
No, I think what you're referring to is the voting rights stuff that I work on.
Right.
So, well, I don't know. I was there in my mid-20s. I had I'd had a good job, and I went off and did some, young idealistic stuff, and then I think a lot of people in their mid-20s, what am I going to do with my life, right? And I didn't know, I still don't know what I'm going to do with my life, but I knew. I was like, okay, well, law school is a good place to go. I'm blessed that I had that opportunity. Say, hey, I'm going to take the LSAT, and I did, and one of the things coming from a political background, everything is why is everything so partisan? Why is it all the people I hang out, they're not as crazy as the political dialogue and stuff we hear. And so one of the things that came back down to vote, to really understand the election process itself. Like, how do these people get elected? Like, they don't represent their average person, right? So I guess I kind of went to law school with the lens and an idea. I wanted to learn more about this. There's no specialty in election law for lawyers. Maybe there should be. But we did have election law classes, and we had law of democracy and things. So I took every opportunity I could get, knowing, I'd get through law school and use that as a tool. I never really wanted to be a quote-unquote attorney, but also learn about the election process. So in part of that is how I developed a legal strategy for Independent Voter Project, which I like to joke that it must be worthwhile because it's been a failure so far. But it's a long-term strategy. Is really challenging, and I even hesitate to use challenging the two-party stuff because some people will take that as anti-party, right? I'm not trying to blow up the parties, but basically the lawsuit is take this to a business area. Say, look, if McDonald's and Burger King were the only two places that could sell cheeseburgers, would that be right? No. Right? So our lawsuit's basically saying, why is our election system designed so that only two parties can serve the voters? Right? What if somebody else wants a different cheeseburger? Right. What if they want chicken on it? Right. So why is that? Right? And a lot of it comes down, without getting into the weeds, is that the structure of our process forces voters to choose one or two, choose the Democrats or choose the Republicans.
It's a trap, right? Right. You fall right
and
into
so that's kind of, I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
but,
it does. I think, especially for my listeners, like you said, it's not like you're a whistleblower trying to expose secrets from the Democrats or the Republicans, crush them down. It's just independence, having your own party, what you want to do, your own will and right. And I'm all about that. That's why we're doing this episode especially. I think it's very important to have that kind of freedom because for me, and I think a lot of other listeners that's like myself, I always figured that voting was more of a rigged popularity, rigged thing. So I never voted. I never did. Obama, I did not vote. No, I did not. I did not vote for Obama. I didn't vote since then. There's a couple of people I should have voted for after that, but you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I always thought it was something like fantasy about it, and I just felt like the powers that be is really holding some plug. And it's like now you got CP coming around. Hey, well, I know something, and you can kind of unplug that. It's kind of
Well, here's the chicken and egg thing. You can't, right? It's kind of I just had this conversation today with another chairman of an organization and a person who runs a big data company, right? Is that we have this self-fulfilling prophecy in politics, is that what nobody ever talks about is how the game works, right? How does the game work? Well, you got a consultant on one side and a consultant on the other side, right? What their game is to identify all the people that they say, I know this person's going to vote for my candidate, and make sure they get to the polls, right? They do that by they have voter files that say this person votes all the time, this person votes here, right? Everybody else, right, they don't really matter, because why would I spend money trying to talk to you if I don't know where you can vote, right? Where you're going to vote. Why would I spend money talking to somebody that might vote for my opponent, right? So everything in politics has become the side of just turning out people who agree with you. So they stop talking, right? And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that because they're talking to those are the people that matter. Those are the people who get represented, right? And that's the situation we're in, right? And so the only way, in my opinion, I might be wrong, but my perspective is that's why you can't have the first part, the primary elections, where you take a state like New Jersey, half of the voters are registered as independent. Not half of the potentially, these are the people that they took the step said, I want to register, I want to vote. The first stage of the process is the primary. You go to there to vote for the person to represent the Democratic Party or the person to represent the Republican Party. So what does the state of New Jersey say to 50% of the people who said, I want to vote. I'm going to register. I just don't want to be a part of one of the two parties. What do they say?
We don't care about you.
Too bad. You can't vote. Yeah. Right? Nobody talks about that. I'm not saying that voter ID and these other issues, they're important. Don't get me wrong. They're very important.
I wish I could vote, right? Trust me.
Okay.
But I just don't feel like it matters because I'm
But that's my point is to say, so if you have the first part of that process, half of those electorate, they can't even vote they can't even vote to elect Burger King or McDonald's best cheeseburger, right? And then they have a general election that says, well, who do you want us to represent all of us, the Big Mac or the Whopper, right? You say, well, I didn't even like Big Macs or Whoppers I didn't like anything from those places,
I don't even
man.
know who they are, yeah.
Like, give me a Shake Shack, right? Too bad. So those are the types of things we're challenging. We're saying, hey, why can the state of New Jersey take all of our tax dollars and conduct this process that's a first stage of our election process and tell half the electorate, go pound sand if you want to vote, unless you join one of these parties you don't like.
Sounds mafia-ish. We're making no words, listener. It sounds mafia-ish. Smooth. It sounds crazy.
I'm going to start using it.
You're stupid. So, was there a pivotal moment that got you into IVP?
Yeah, IVP. Well, me and my current business partner, Anthony Astolfi, is one of my best friends.
Hey,
one of the
smartest
people I know. We were approached by the Independent Voter Project. What was it, 2009 or something? And we were doing a lot of digital stuff, and
that was a good year. That was a political year, 2009. Joyce the Beer Center, all that. I was moving around then. I was.
Well, what was important is this is before, I really had my head in the voting rights stuff, but they had drafted California's nonpartisan top 2 primary. So the situation I was saying in New Jersey, right, you have to join a party. They drafted an initiative called the nonpartisan primary, Proposition 14 at the time. It's really said something simple. All candidates run in the same ballot in the primary. Everybody gets to vote, and the top 2 go to the general election. Party doesn't matter. They came to us and said, hey, look, we want to do digital advertising to inform people about this initiative, right? We need people to know they can go out and vote because it was on the ballot in a primary election where if you're an independent, there's not much to vote for. So we had to go tell people, hey, there's something on the ballot you might want to vote for because it'll allow you to vote for candidates the next time if you vote yes, right? So, that kind of started getting me drugged in. And then because we did that, we had other people that saw that work that we did digitally. Remember, this is 2009. There wasn't a whole lot of political dollars being spent on digital advertising. This is way before the millions of dollars were spent on social media. Yeah. And so people saw and they're like, whoa, you could use that for politics. And that's kind of what made me become a digital communications person instead of an attorney, right? Because people then asked, hey, can you do this for me? And not all of it was politics, right? But it was usually politics related. It was a public policy thing or something. They say, hey, can you do something like that for me? Can you do something? So, me and Anthony are still partners to this day, right? It just happened because people we did one project, people asked, can you do that? I'm a marketing firm and, other than sending maybe an email out to my clients, I've never marketed, we've never marketed ourselves in our whole history. So, yeah.
I mean, would you though? Would you get to a point to where you feel like, you know what, I'm going to go get the best marketing that they use to make sure that this is everywhere? Because this is a powerful message, but do you feel that, like in the aspect of, okay, we use music. That's why I don't know what else but say a label uses a marketing firm to make sure their artist is seen everywhere. They don't care if it's the low bottom streaming service to the top one, like all around the world, it's flyers, Times Square, like all this mass exposure.
Yeah.
Would you do that with IVP?
I would never say.
Because you did it with the news, with KUSI interview.
And that was for my client. Independent Voter Project end is my client that I care about, right? And so I make a living as a digital marketer, right? I get to do cool things like work in cannabis marketing at the same time, working on voting rights stuff because I have cool clients that I care about. And so whether it's one project or it's my company as a whole of like doing traditional marketing or going to, and like for myself, my marketing firm is actually spending resources marketing ourselves. I wouldn't say that we won't ever do that, and maybe we'll be in a position one day to do that. But right now, we have a relatively, we can still consider ourselves a boutique firm, right? And give special.
I think it's bigger than boutique. Yeah, I mean, you got some. You did this on news interviews. You done. CP, you're too humble, man. CP is humble, y'all. I'm glad he is, though.
we're getting along how we are right now, and it's nice. And we're still doing stuff. Like we're building infrastructure and platforms and the relationships and stuff so that we could scale more if we want to. But right now we're pretty good where we're at.
And I think that lasts longer and gives more longevity to everything. Honestly, building that foundational relationships and having things that's concrete, like especially building it right now. It's a lot of people that strive for a 5-year plan, and you're okay with a 10. I am too. I recently learned that coming here, like not to put everything in a year.
Well, sometimes we put pressure on ourselves because we see, and like especially if you have creativity, you have imagination, you think about, oh, this is what I can do, or what we can do, or what can be, right? Sometimes we don't spend as much time thinking of all the things that might go wrong or slow you down or do that, and people get frustrated and give up. And so, I'm not saying certainly I'm the furthest. I'll spend nights in my bed, my head spinning. Oh my God, the world's gonna end because this happened, right? And stuff. And then I'll be 40 next week. So like, I've had enough of those nights to know when that stuff happens. Like, no, the world's not going to end, right? And like, and if it is, there ain't nothing you're going to do about it. You're right. So, but and then if you're looking though more narrowly, like independent voter project stuff and everything, like on that, take that client specifically is like, I would, you see campaigns all the time of like the importance of voting and things like they're pretty ubiquitous of like getting out there, like. I would love to be able to have a ubiquitous conversation about the types of issues, that at least I think are structural, right? That are the issues that create the divisions in our election system that really magnify the differences rather than lead us to compromise, right? Right. But that's hard, and that's not, the money in politics is there to win, and that doesn't even mean it's necessarily evil, although there's a large amount of money that's very self-interested and is not for good purpose. Of course. But even a lot of good people in politics, they have a choice, right? Here's the system that exists today, and I'm going to invest in trying to make progress in the political system. Am I going to do it by trying to fundamentally change the system and kind of be an outcast to,
Which is what I've been trying to ask you, because what it seems like, especially having that, like, if you're going to be the face of it, like, I know but if you are, that's what it looks like. And I mean, I know there's a lot of Americans that don't believe in the political system nowadays. That could be a big part of the factor too, because I'm speaking subjectively right now for myself. I don't. I mean, look at my position. I'm a black man in America. Of course, I don't believe my government works for me at all. Everything's against me. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I get that, right? And so, like, I always joke because people talk to me about politics. They know I'm in it. And, like, for me, I kind of feel like I'm an outsider of the system, right? Because I'm working on this stuff. But then, like, the people I want to talk to, like, think I'm an insider because I work in politics, right? But, like, at the same time, I have a fundamentally different perspective than you by virtue of life circumstances. I'm a white guy who grew up in a, pretty middle class, upper middle class family, right? And so I also, but I've never like I've looked at government as not as anti-government or even anti-party as maybe some of the things I work on is that I have been exposed to a lot of the people in government. And so I do come to the perspective that by and large, there's really a lot of really good people. Like good people, they get there because they want to do good things, right? People. Right. Most are all of them good? No. But are most of them? Yeah, they have different perspectives, right? But watch as the system and the structure and the incentives, right? The incentives force them not I'm going to focus on this because I can get this done. And then once I'm here, I'm going to do this. And then once I'm here, I'm going to do this, right? But that time never comes, right? And so that's why I've always like, people ask, are you going to go run for office and do what? And do what, right? Is I think, and maybe it's just like, maybe I don't know, but it's like, if I'm going to do something, is try to change the actual structure so that that the good people are there. And more importantly, all the good people who don't run, because why would good people who can be successful in the private world, who can run a business and do good things in the private world, why would you subject yourself to a political environment that's going to take every little thing you say and tell half of the world that you were actually you were saying some evil thing, right? And not actually have a conversation and be dominated by questions that are within this little tiny political narrative that nobody else actually gives a shit about, but the people running for office and the people trying to stay in office.
I know I'm running off track, but I'm glad I got you here. Would you say that the political process sometimes seems outdated in how they...
Yeah.
Because it was formed is it still...
Well, I think a lot of the mechanisms are, the core of both our legal and our reform efforts are basically saying that, right? So one of the things we forget, okay, take primary elections, for example. Those were instituted at the turn of the century, right? They were almost 120 years old since we've had primaries. We didn't have them at all before, right? Why did we introduce primaries? Well, because people felt like party bosses were making decisions in the back room, and the candidates didn't really, they were pre-selected, that voters didn't really have a choice. So we created primaries. Now skip forward 120 years later. Well, I think those party bosses and the people that fund them have done a pretty good job of steadily eroding the barriers that made that participation in primaries as meaningful, right? And so just like anything else, we have to change as the time changes and stuff. And I would say one of the things is like we have a very party-centric system. In fact, you go political science or you go to study election law. Everything's viewed from a partisan context. You go and see, they do studies on what's the effect of California's nonpartisan primaries. Well, now we have a supermajority of Democrats. There's the same number of blue or more than there was before, so it didn't do anything. Nobody asked, well, do they act differently? Are they able to legislate differently? Do they have more freedom, right, to talk to different people? Is the value, right? So those kinds of nuances and changes and stuff in the electorate, which I believe has become increasingly nonpartisan, right, need to be reconciled with the process by which we elect them. And so right now, same self-fulfilling prophecy about these are the people who vote, these are the ones we talk to. I believe that the politics kind of gets stuck and we don't innovate. One, we only have elections every 2 and 4 years, right? And so, innovation is harder. but right, we haven't designed any incentives to change because you're rewarded for the behavior that we all object to, right? Somebody gets elected by behaving that way, by talking that way.
So would you use that for the Trump example?
Both sides. I'd say both sides. Look at, they both call each other all kinds of names and they, right?
They eat dinner together at night.
Yeah, well, some of them do. I'm not sure. I'm not sure Trump and Biden are having dinner together.
That's the conspiracy theory, y'all. I'm sorry.
No, but there are. But there are, and I think. But frankly, I think they should be eating dinner together at night. I think
that's
they should.
What I would think because they're all part of one party. And honestly,
and
Democrat or Republican is still just one party.
They should be sitting dinner saying, but the conversation be how do I get my voters and your voters to agree on something that's going to advance this country.
I think that's what the dinner is about.
That's what the dinner should be about. But we've designed a system where the incentives are not to even go to and have that dinner because what happened? If you're a Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. Both sides. News finds out they had dinner together. Oh my gosh, this guy's not a real Republican because he had dinner with that Democrat. And then the other side goes, well, this woman's not a real Democrat because she had dinner with that Republican, right? And that happens. Where does that happen? That happens in the primary election because they're all running to be the champion of the Democrats or champion of the Republicans. So doing anything that suggests you might be trying to find common ground with somebody that your party has defined as the enemy and evil makes you not a very good champion of those people.
It sounds too familiar with gangs. It sounds all too familiar. What are the colors, JC? Blue and red? I'm just like,
maybe.
Politicians talking about what up, blah.
But right.
But now you're right. And it's shocking to me because it's like the Willie Brown, your brother Brett was telling me about a dinner he had with, I forgot his name, but it was everywhere though. It was a big dinner. They sat down for like, I think an hour and 15. I think he put it in his book too. Actual Malice. Go ahead and get that. And it's on Amazon.
It's pretty good.
It is good. But like that though, it wasn't a regular conversation. Everybody had paparazzi around. He took pictures with them. They were smiling and stuff, but they couldn't really talk because of that.
Right.
So it's more of a show.
Well, yeah. It's part of it's a show. Part of it is it's going back to the what I was talking about. How you say something and then it gets completely spun in the political spin of like, oh, they said this, right? And the context gets changed, right? Or, I believe that there is a role for private conversations in politics and public conversation. But at the end, what people are looking for are leaders who are authentic and honest about where they're at. And they know that they're representing them well in those private conversations, right? I think what we have right now is we don't trust that the people that are representing us would go in, are having these private conversations on our behalf, right? No. They're having conversations on saying the things they need to say to get to the next, the next post, right?
Yeah,
and so,
Yeah, I'm seeing it right now with our president. But what does nonpartisan reform look like to you?
It's, nonpartisan if you're going to say most simply, most idealistically, I would say nonpartisan reform to me means that every voter, regardless of party, age, right, race, creed, color, every voter's, their vote means the same thing, that it has the same value, right? And right now, I don't think we're anywhere close to that. Take a state like New Jersey. You can't possibly say that an independent has a vote that's as valuable as a Democrat or Republican because the independent literally cannot influence a primary election at all, right? If you're an independent voter and you're entering the election during the general election and maybe you have a third-party candidate who you like, your vote's not meaningful because, you know what? Take the presidential election. What do you think the odds are that there's going to be anybody but a Republican or a Democrat in the presidential debates, if they have one at all this year, right?
Yeah.
Like Gary Johnson, he had almost 15% on the national polls. They didn't let him debate.
No.
The most important conversation with the American people.
Barry Sanders.
They wouldn't even let somebody on this presidential debate stage to talk to the people who, despite getting 0.01% of the press coverage, despite having both party machines doing everything they could, right? And I'm not even this could be anybody, right? I'm not saying, hey, Gary Johnson would have been a great president. That's irrelevant.
Right. But he was for the people.
But I'm saying there was somebody else that had a substantial amount of support to be on that debate stage. They wouldn't even let him talk to the American people, right? So if you're running outside of that two-party system, your ability to influence it is significantly devalued.
And again, I'm going to ask for my listeners, do you get my question that I asked you earlier? I mean, because I'm all about, and this is the best example I'll use, I'm all about being the cowboy to run over the mountain to see if there's Indians over there and come back with arrows all in me. I'm down to go ahead and say something and catch the fireball back from it and explain what I meant. You get what I'm saying? But if I'm standing for a cause, especially something like this, I'm going to be forefront. I got arrested at Joyce the Beer Center for talking about priests and what they do to kids. We talked about 9/11 being an inside job. I didn't go to jail. I didn't go to holding cell. But, they detain you for a little bit. I got arrested for that too. But it's like, it seems like there's a power at hand sometimes, even if it's small scale. Like when you're talking about independence and freedom of thought, being a free thinker, you get shut down. I mean, I got pushed to a Democratic. Like when Al Gore was running, my whole family wanted him to be president. So automatically I was on his side. I'm, well, okay. And so I'm finding out about Democrats from my mom was in the Navy 20 years. So I'm finding out about all of that. And I'm like, oh, then when Bush came, it was just so I'm understanding just from that. I'm like, what am I going to be? You know what I mean? No disrespect though, because I feel like politics changed from being something that was for the people and changing to what it is now. Mm-hmm. Where you have real politicians like your father, the Willie Browns, and, I'm just throwing those out as a couple, but.
Or, well, I'm biased.
Yeah. Yeah. Really for the people. But you don't see that now. There's not even a Black Panthers around. There's no revolutionary movements is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. To where it's just one government now. And it's either you a Republican or Democrats. A Demo hood. For real though. It's crazy. So I guess that's what makes me want to ask you, what do you see for the future of politics?
You have to stay optimistic about it.
Really,
I think,
though?
Yeah, I think you should. Well, you do. Then what's the alternative, right? The alternative is to go home and be miserable about it and say it's never going to change, right? And then how do you actually change anything, right? It's like, I think at some point, change it, well, things have changed over time. Well, look at the history. Like, there was a time when African American Black men they couldn't vote.
Not yet. Malcolm X spoke about it.
Right. There was a time when women couldn't vote. That wasn't that long ago, right? There was a time when times can change and people can change, right? And like, the things that you say in my perfect nonpartisan world, how would it be? To be realistic, that's not going to happen tomorrow, right? But we can slowly change things, and maybe it's going to be 20 years behind society, but society's always going to move faster and find its way around the politicians, right? And we'll have pendulum swings of absurdity going this way, right? Real people are affected, and we could have things could be a lot better and everything, but in the aggregate is just having some faith that society's going to push back on the absurdity and make some changes that will improve things, right?
I hope so. I mean, I seen a lot of fighters back then. It's not really people that's down to go through that,
or they just waiting for the right fight, right? Or that's a question too. Or if you be built up and you have all this pent up aggression, right? But there's a lot of people who don't want to express it, and I think rightfully don't want to express it as violence and this and that, right? We don't want to be that way, right? So the alternative is wait for the right time when you can see that there is an aggregate of being able to channel those, the desire to change in a peaceful but effective way, right? And who knows? I don't know what that time will be, right?
I hope it can, because, the way it's looking from 92 down, riots and all that, it seems like that's the way to get the word across sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, it's hard, I know, and that's,
but it's a two-way street, you know what I mean, if that makes sense. I'm just going around, but it's still all politics, right? The Rodney King thing, right? And 92, right? It's like, it's still things going on like that today. It's going to be a new one that happens. I guarantee you next year, it's going to be the same result again. Is it really going to be something if we're talking about change, I'm talking about overall in America and the world, and from dictatorship to the political system we have.
Yeah, but I think, you can talk, and we all have different perspectives of change and what's influential, what's not. I think the most important thing, though, is, one, I think as more people really, they understand why do I feel disenfranchised, right? I think a lot of times people will react or, do things, but society in general, doesn't really understand, well, why did we even get there, right? What is it that we're really, and so there may be a structural problem, as I believe, that have misaligned the incentives to government itself, right? But then we pick an issue that is affected by it and rally against that issue. Well, it's not really that issue that got messed up. It was the way in which we have representatives decide how that issue is handled, right? So And the one thing I think is more people understanding, and I think they are. I think there's a higher realization of like how things are really working and stuff.
It's slowly coming there,
right?
You're right.
But then also the second thing is like a lot of times we use the presidential, I did the presidential debates as an example and everything. But ironically, I think the most important things are the little changes we can have at home. I told you I got back into it because there was a statewide reform in California, the largest state in the union, where we fundamentally structurally changed the election process. Now, was that a silver bullet? Did it, is it devoid of unintended consequences? No, it wasn't perfect, but it was a substantial change towards what I at least believe is a better process. We also authored Measure K in San Diego in 2016 and passed that. That was throwing a dart, hitting the board, right? And so there's changes like that. There's organizations in Maine that passed a thing called ranked choice voting in the state of Maine.
Shout out to Maine.
Yeah, it's Alaska.
Huge shout out to Maine.
Alaska went to something that our IVP advocates for, is a hybrid where they have nonpartisan primaries, and then they get a rank up to 4 candidates in the general election, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? These things aren't talked about on a day-to-day basis in the political news, but they're significant, right? Going back to talk about when primaries were introduced, a couple states introduced them, then boom, all of a sudden, a bunch of them did at the same time and fundamentally changed the process at that time, made it more small d democratic, right? When will there be a tipping point? I don't know. But when I started this 15 years ago, there's about 4 people in the corner of a room talking about things like opening primaries and nonpartisan primaries and ranked choice voting, right? Now there's a lot more, and there's victories that you can look at and identify as like, look, they won there, right? And that, so my point being, from a reformer's perspective, which can be, a little depressing at times, because you're like, why don't we just, this doesn't even make sense. Why can't we just do these kinds of things? Like, why do we treat these voters like they don't, they're second-class citizens?
Yeah.
I see victories like that, and then if you pan out to the history of time, it's like, that's how things generally go. You get small shots, you get small victories, blah, 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 but there'll be a moment when it becomes accepted. And then the chips fall, and you get broad implementation, right? So I got to be optimistic about that.
I'm glad you are. I can't wait for that time, because then I'm gonna be voting. I do not know how that feels to vote, and I don't plan on it until it's like that. So, what are the best ways you expose citizens to the value of independent voting?
Well, so you say the value of independent. I could argue that, and I did. I said you have devalued if you vote independent voting, right? So, I think the most important thing is to say the value of independent-minded voting, right? As I know, a lot of times, even our organization's Independent Voter Project. I'm not talking about necessarily registering as an independent. You can be a Democrat and be independent-minded. You can be a Republican and be independent-minded, right? It's understanding that there's party apparatuses which are charged with advancing and making their party more influential and powerful. And frankly, I'm not saying that there's not a role for political parties at all. I actually believe if you had a process that treated all voters the same, the parties would get stronger, not weaker. Maybe they wouldn't have more seats. There's only a finite number of seats. But in terms of the people that believe they are at least adequately represented by those parties, I think would exceed dramatically. So what would somebody see in the value of independent voting is just keep your mind open and understand, okay, it's totally fine to be a Democrat and to think, generally this party's going to be better for me, or I think they're on the red, whatever party it is, but be independent minded enough to know, what, maybe there's some merit to maybe it's not like the only reason somebody would say that isn't because they're evil, right? Maybe let me understand why they believe something different than me. And I can almost guarantee you'll find out those people, because they're viewing the way you're seeing things the other thing without having thought about how you'll realize once you talk about it, you're not that far off. Or you can at least believe in the principles of how they came to that conclusion, right? And so I think the value of that is then even if you want to get in politics, you can talk to anyone. You can have a conversation. You can disagree without turning somebody into an enemy, because you can respect the difference of opinion.
I wish it was like that, though.
It is in some places.
Right, in some places.
Yeah.
Now, I guess this is just my last question personally. What about the people that don't want to be in a party, that just want complete, I'm my own voter, I represent me, I'm going to vote for it?
You know, that's what I'm saying. You need to have structural change. I mean, California, like I said, you other than for president, like you can vote for whoever you want in whatever race you want, and in California, and so it's be a nonpartisan voter, and I think you actually become now more valuable because you're up for grabs for anybody, right? Right.
But your best suggestion is being an independent-minded.
I'd say,
Democrat
but if I'm sitting in New Jersey and saying, hey, look, I got a primary where somebody from this party is guaranteed to win the general election because the district's gerrymandered, and whoever wins this party's primary is going to win. For valuing your vote is like, now you have a choice. This is the core of our lawsuit, right? Because we can find it so personally offensive to join a party that we don't really want to associate with, right? That this is what the court said. The court literally said this to us. If you feel that bad about not having the right to vote, just join a party.
Oh, my God.
Right? So your question to me is saying, okay, well, what's the practical thing to do?
You serious?
Is say, like, well, hold your nose and, join the Democrats or Republican, depending on your district, so that your vote's more valuable, right? At the same time, you have to understand, I'm the guy on the side of the lawsuit offended that that's what a court said.
Yeah,
I don't, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild.
But that's
wild.
the reality. And why, there's not really an interest in either party magnifying that this court case even happened, right? You know what I mean?
And it's messed up. And if you guys do need more coverage on that, I'm gonna go ahead and drop a tab on it. See, my last question: do you feel like that's what happened with the Trump thing, with the votes being this and that, and was it because it was a mixture of just independent? They put independent voters into or am I just speculating shit?
Well, I don't know I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to.
They said his votes was rigged, and
what he's saying?
Yeah, it was an inflated amount.
Well,
of
I think that's
votes.
much deeper.
They said Russia was tied in,
right?
Just to give.
Well, yeah, you had the Russia thing and all that stuff. I think it's much more broad than that. I think just like everything else, there's probably there's been malicious things going on for hundreds of years, right? Did they affect the election? There's always people, think about it, how many people you have involved in the election process and stuff. You're bound to have some people not following the rules, like in some places, right? But now when we're talking about a scale to affect the election, right? That's the real important conversation. Is there's so much bigger question than that. I don't think Trump's done a service by just saying out there and saying it was all rigged and everything. But there's, we have think of the election we had, right? We had, for the first time, we had COVID. We just mailed ballots to every. How accurate? You think the voter rolls are 100% accurate?
No.
So we just mailed ballots to every single one, right? I'm not saying that maybe that changed a little. So, yeah, there was some stuff that, I don't know. I think, we got to move on and we got to go and do the things to protect the election and everything. But I think there's a lot more, and this goes to the point of the two. If both parties should have an honest conversation about, okay, how do we ensure the accuracy of voting, right? And that we don't have this kind of stuff. If we focused on that, said, okay, the election's over. How do we do that now, right? I'm sure there were some things that were blah, blah, blah. We could have a better chance of resolution, but what the debate we have right now. There was absolutely nothing wrong, not a single thing, not a single corrupted ballot in the entire process. Yeah. That's one side. Yeah. And then the other side is, everything was completely fraud, and this was a bunch of, right? There's no actual real discussion.
No.
Right? Nobody ever comes on and say, at least have a debate about it. They say, no, you suggesting anything possibly was wrong, you're out. Yeah. Wait, you're saying that everything was completely right, and you're denying that there might not have been like one ballot turned in from like the wrong person or something? You're out.
Wow.
Right? So that's my point. That leaves us to where we're at today. Is we don't get nothing gets better because it's just a shouting match from two sides that don't recognize that maybe there's something right about each side. And then even saying that, the megaphones on each side are the most absurd.
Right. It sounds like a bigger swinging contest. And for people that's real scared to talk about politics, I'm real excited. And thank you for all
I'm
these
scared
questions.
to talk about it.
You shouldn't be, Kello, okay? You should not be. But it's don't get scared about talking about it, especially the way Chad put it down for me and for my listeners. It's really just a structural business. Everything is regular people. There's nothing that's godlike about it. These people are just
I think there's nothing to be scared about if you just don't be authentic and don't take it personally. Somebody might disagree with you.
There's so much mystique around politics.
Yeah.
Some people don't even want to dive in because the mystique around it.
I
you know
totally,
what I mean?
I totally understand.
So you got people that think, and I'm just talking to those listeners, people that think this or it's the devil behind the counter. It's like, it's just a normal people, normal place. Yes, they got a country in their hands, but obviously they're more focused on which side they're on and who's right.
Right.
That's unfortunate. So I'm glad that Chad's in the fight to go ahead and make sure that IVP and anything that IVP does to be an independent voter is a project that you're a part of. If you do want to get some newsletters and some coverage from them, visit ivn.us. Also visit independentvoter.org to get involved. We're going to take it to our topics and solutions segment with Chad Peace. We'll be right back after the
Tavares Jordan.
Topics and solutions.
We're going to do it different on this one. Wow. So for this one, it's going to be more about facts real quick and something I'm going to pick from the sheet. And CP is going to help me out and give his analysis on these stats that I grabbed from ivn.us. The first one I want to use is U.S. voters in greater numbers than ever before do not trust the political process. In fact, according to a comprehensive study from PEW, just 4% of adults say the political system is working extremely or very well. Nearly 2/3, 63% from our listeners, of survey takers express little to no confidence in the future of the U.S. political process. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's why we do what we do. I think it's sad. Like, that shouldn't be that way. And those numbers are worse than they've ever been, right? And I think at its core is structural, right? We've designed a system that's designed to represent a relatively few amount of people on each side of the aisle. And so when you say it's not even worth my time to go vote, right? I think there's folks in politics say, oh, you don't care. Well, I actually think it's the rational, right? It's what some people rationally, you have a million things to do. You have to live your life, right? I'm the idiot that spends my life and my career, going to try to go battle this system and probably just get punched in the face over and over and may or may not be so, right? But, that a majority of the population is saying this whole system, not this party, this whole system isn't working, right? That's structural. That's not an issue. It's not climate change or abortion or anything else. It's structural. There's something fundamentally flawed, and that's why Independent Voter Project focuses on the way we elect people, because we think it's from there that representatives get the incentives to act and to frame the whole political dialogue, and that eventually leads to satisfaction with whether representatives are saying and doing the right thing.
Right. And honestly, with statistics, it's gearing more to a 60s revolution, you could say, even with social equity measures being at 57%. Shout out to Ganjapreneur for the stat. But it's gearing back to that. And if it does get to a point where people are fighting against the system, as Public Enemy would say, that's going to be great, because that's probably the change that needs to be fought for, is that. We fought for a lot of other things, Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter and all that shit, but that shit don't really matter. Like, it's that matters, voting for that to matter. Does that make sense?
Well, it's representation that matters,
Get what I'm saying?
right? If you're not represented, right, then nothing's really going to change long term, right?
Right. But there's also another thing about the look of a politician sometimes. Obama was, of course, the most different that we've seen, but a lot of politicians are, white dudes that come from a nice prestige background and can run with that funding and get sponsors and fundraised and,
I know.
That's a whole different lifestyle. So I'm sorry, this is my last, and we'll keep it at that one, but this is my question. So, because I want my listeners to be engaged on this, my little base, but how would you tell somebody, or what would you tell somebody from not that kind of environment to get into politics? How could you tell somebody from Southeast San Diego that lives by Lincoln Park High School and on the 47th and Imperial, yo, why don't you get into politics? You can make change for this neighborhood.
Well, you can if you stay grounded and in it for who you want to be. I mean, to your point, yeah, you need to jump in and go and be the governor tomorrow, and that requires a lot of money and a lot of but you still can at a local level. You can go and if you find offices or find something, right, I would say yes, you can get involved and you can make a difference, and people will respect you for going in there and just, like I said, but you remain authentic to yourself. The hardest part is going in there and just saying, well, I'm just going to tell everybody I agree with everything because that's how I'm going to make friends, and that's how they're going to, I'm going to rise up into that political world as things say, oh yeah, right? That's the hard part. But if you can go in there and be an agreeable person that disagrees sometimes, person that can make friends that they know, say that the people are willing to go to and say, hey, is this really the right thing? Is this, do you have a different opinion, and is willing to say it? You can go a long ways because people respect you. That's hard. And I'm not saying that's easy, but, if you want to go into an environment where, you want to be yourself, you can. Right, and you can be effective, and especially at the local level, and that's, you work your way up. I mean, we've had representatives here at City Council from communities of color who they weren't supposed to get elected, but you know what? Their community respected them. Yeah, they went out there and they did the hard work and hit the pavement, talked to the community, and they got elected. It can still happen. Yeah. So, but you say if you disassociate yourself, I'm not picking on you, but then you kind of are left with. It is what it is. Yeah.
Now, BP told me to get into politics. I told him no. But I've been thinking about it because I like what I'm representing. My mom always seen that, so I'm looking at some stuff, changing some things. I'm getting older. Yeah. I wish I could have had more time. We're going to wrap it up right there. I do want to leave my listeners with a good saying. Sometimes the person behind that'll pull the trigger for you is the person that'll pull the trigger on you, from Tupac. And even if that does happen, always strive and go for better. I done been done dirty by a lot of other people that always put their self-interest before mine instead of moving as a unit when that was promised. And that doesn't stop anything unless you let it. Consistency is better than perfection. Remember that. So stay consistent, stay working, stay getting it. I am your host, Mr. Wowzer Chad. Thank you for joining me again. You're my relative, you know that.
Thanks for having me. Likewise.
Hello. And we are out.
Just like the stick up on me, I'ma always be on your side. And you so sexy every time I see you, babe, it's on sight. So what you wanna do, dinner anywhere, let's take a flight. Or we could do something different since we used to the high life. Favorite meal whipped in the kitchen, let's Netflix and get high. You feel me?
Thanks for listening to the Doty Connection. Be sure to follow and subscribe whenever you listen to your podcasts. To read the blog associated with this episode, visit olismedia.com. This episode was produced in studios located in San Diego, California. Lena Alvarez is co-producer. Serving as executive producer and co-founder is JC Polk, and Chad Peace is president and co-founder. Olas Media is an IVC Media company.
Olas Media.